Hello YouTube, this is DVD Review Studios here, and today I'm going to be doing a Blu-ray and DVD update for July 2017. Apologies for the lack of uploads recently, but I've been extremely busy this past couple of months, so I haven't really had a chance to sit down and film any videos. But luckily I do have quite a lot of free time at the moment, so I'm going to try and upload as regularly as I possibly can. Also, apologies in advance for the extremely long length of this video. It wasn't intentional, but this is 4 months worth of pickups, and I usually try to consolidate at least 2 months worth into a single 15-minute video, so I'm anticipating this video will go over the 30-minute mark, but I'll try and cut it down as best as I can. That might lead to choppy editing and some redubbing, but regardless, I shall try and keep it to a shorter length as I possibly can, and I hope you stick around for this video and listen to my thoughts on various Blu-ray titles, a whole load of movies on DVD, various box sets, animated shows, etc. So anyway, let's begin with the Blu-rays. First up we have Rogue One, a Star Wars story. I've already reviewed this Blu-ray, and I've also reviewed the movie back in 2016, so you can check out those videos to hear my full thoughts on the film. But yeah, I really thoroughly enjoyed this. Great music score, and I love this as a prequel. It really does set up the events of Star Wars Episode 4 very nicely. So that is Rogue One, a Star Wars story. Next up we have a documentary film by Brett Morgan, and that is Cobain, Montage of Heck. Overall, quite an insightful and very eye-opening documentary focusing on the earlier life of Kurt Cobain before Nirvana, and the art and the music that did actually inspire Nirvana. I found it to be quite insightful, particularly the interview sequences and various pieces of archive footage of the band slowly coming into a popular fruition, and just overall I really quite enjoyed those sequences. There's some really great animated moments as well. There's a little tiny snapshot of that pictured on the back, which is actually Cobain's voice dubbing over and retelling a story as we see visually in animation, so I quite like that. And the ending was a little bit saddening as well, of course, with the topic of his death back in '94, which wasn't really prominently focused on. I'm very glad about that, but drug abuse was obviously quite a key thing to Cobain's life, and the interviews with Courtney Love and seeing archive footage of him, her and their child together, it was kind of saddening in a way, but still a very eye-opening film, and definitely something I would recommend to fans of Nirvana and Cobain. So that's Cobain, Montage of Heck. Next up we have a whole load of Marvel movies, beginning with Doctor Strange. I really do regret not watching this film in the cinema, but I grabbed this on day of release, and I really thoroughly enjoyed it. Some great visuals. Of course, the main storyline focuses on Stephen Strange, who is a physician, ending up in a car accident, and so because his hands are basically broken, let's say, he seeks out a magic that can actually heal him and ends up saving the world. So overall, a really great film. I really quite like the villain Caecilius, who was kind of a disposable Marvel villain, which is typical of various Marvel origin story movies. But yeah, I really quite like that character, and Tilda Swinton as the Ancient One. I quite liked her role as, well, her character, let's say, as well. So that's Doctor Strange, a really enjoyable film. Next up we have Iron Man 3, which I didn't really want to grab, to be honest. I grabbed this because I found it for only £1, so I thought, why not complete the Iron Man trilogy? And it wasn't as bad as I remember it being. I really quite like the character that Guy Pearce portrays, the main villain, but I really didn't like the Ben Kingsley Mandarin style crap that they pulled. It was really unfitting. I will assume they tried to make it more sort of comical because of obviously the controversial means of the character. Basically he's a terrorist, but they really did not need to go as far as, well, what they did.
Don't hurt the face! Oh, what? Oh, what? Bloody hell.
So yeah, I wasn't really too much of a fan of the Trevor Slattery twist, but they have brought that back previously, and I think that was kind of more comical, but it really was sort of awkwardly worked into this film, so I didn't really enjoy that too much, but the rest of the storyline is pretty enjoyable, and the ending is quite good as well. So that's Iron Man 3, fairly decent film. Next up we have both the Captain America films. I've never really been too interested in Captain America, especially the MCU variation of him. I'm not really a big fan of Chris Evans, but this was actually quite a surprising origin story. I really quite like the side character of Peggy Carter, Agent Carter now, of course, well known for the spin-off TV show, which I haven't watched yet, but I am looking forward to doing so. But yeah, this film is questionable to me. The first act is quite bizarre, especially with the overly CGI'd sort of scrawny-looking Chris Evans, which really just does not work. But yeah, other than that, I did quite enjoy it, especially for Red Skull, portrayed by Hugo Weaving. Just a really great portrayal of the character, and I'm hoping that he might make a return in Infinity War at some point. So that's Captain America, the First Avenger, and then we have the sequel, Captain America, the Winter Soldier, which I loved. Really amazing movie. I really love Scarlett Johansson in this film, and the sequences involving Nick Fury were truly phenomenal. The car chase scene and the whole shootout was just truly phenomenal. Really well filmed and great CGI and special effects, etc. And I really quite liked Bucky as the Winter Soldier as well. So yeah, overall, really great film, and some quite interesting character development, in particular with Bucky. So yeah, very enjoyable. Would highly recommend The Winter Soldier. And finally, for the Marvel-related stuff, we have the complete first season of Daredevil by Netflix, which I wasn't really too interested in this show when I first heard about it, but I've heard very good things, and it's 13 episodes spread over 4 discs, and it's basically an extended origin story of Matt Murdock becoming Daredevil, and I really enjoyed that. It was just a really well-performed little series, and even though I didn't really like the main villain Kingpin, I just thought he was more of a man-child than anything than an actual menacing villain, but it was what he was capable of that actually really intrigued me, since he had this sort of like dark army, let's say, in Hell's Kitchen in New York. So overall, quite an interesting series, and I shall be doing a review of that as soon as possible. So that's Daredevil. Next up, we have season 2 of Mr. Robot, the continuation of Elliot's sort of schizophrenic visions of his deceased father. I really just loved every single thing about this. The first few episodes were incredibly slow, but that was for a reason, for a twist that I shall not be revealing. But in episode 7, there was a really great twist that really did intrigue me, and that overall really made me appreciate the first few episodes that we had already seen, and the cliffhanger to this is just complete murder, so I cannot wait to see how that all gets unravelled in season 3, so that's Mr. Robot season 2. Next up we have the first season of Gotham, which I'm looking forward to watching this show. I haven't watched any of it yet other than the first episode, and I really enjoyed the first episode. I quite like the character Oswald Cobblepot, so I'm looking forward to seeing what would happen to him in the upcoming episode, so that's season 1 of Gotham. Season 1 of Legends of Tomorrow, I've only seen the first episode of this as well, and I'm looking forward to watching the rest of the series, so I cannot wait to check out this. And finally for the Blu-rays we have, which I grabbed for the grand total of 98p over Amazon Prime, Minions, which I haven't watched yet. I saw this once with my nephew and it was just a whole load of rubbish, and I don't think I'll be watching it on my own anytime soon. So yeah, that is the Minions. Let's move on to the DVDs. Moving on to the DVDs, we have the remaining 4 seasons of The Simpsons I needed to complete my collection of Simpsons on DVD, since they no longer make the box sets, which is really infuriating, but that's a whole different matter. Anyway, let's begin with season 15, which is in the limited edition 3D head-style packaging. I've never had one of these before, and I never really wanted to pick any of them up, because obviously they're so intrusive on the shelf, but I did not know that these little 3D card pieces were removable, so obviously we have Otto on the front cover. Remove the translucent sleeve and this just comes off, and there's little bits of glue that were on here that I've peeled away, so it's just the regular box set now, which is absolutely fantastic. So I haven't really watched too much of season 15. I did enjoy the first disc, which is about as far as I got, I think. I really enjoyed the Trias of Horror episode on here with the Frankenstein segment. That was absolutely hilarious. So I look forward to watching the rest of the season. Obviously this shall be reviewed very soon. So that's season 15 of The Simpsons. Next up we have season 16, which was absolutely phenomenal. I finished the entire thing in about a week, and overall I thought it was great. Some really great memorable episodes, particularly the one where Marge sabotages a baking contest, which was great, and I really enjoyed the episode where Selma goes over to China with Homer as her husband in order to adopt a Chinese baby, which was fantastic as well. So overall a really funny season. Next up we have season 17 featuring Sideshow Bob on the front cover, which looks fantastic, and this was the last Simpsons season, despite the next one being season 20 and there being no 18 or 19 on DVD, which kind of sucks. But yeah, I haven't watched any of the season yet, but I do know the episode with Sideshow Bob on here is phenomenal. I've seen it many times, and on the side of the box set on the spine we have his wife and child from Italy. So I really do quite like that episode, and I look forward to checking out the others. And finally for the Simpsons box sets we have season 20, which was released in 2009 I believe, as part of the 20th anniversary of The Simpsons, and it doesn't really have anything other than the episodes on here, sort of a minor special feature, and that's just a singular feature, and that's it really. So you just get the episodes on here, which is good to have as a release, and I did enjoy these overall. Some episodes were a little bit hit and miss, especially the Homer focused episodes, which really seemed quite out of his character, but that's a completely different matter once again. So that's the Simpsons seasons complete now. If only they would make 18 and 19 and 21 onwards, but it doesn't look like that will ever be happening, which is very disappointing, but overall I really do enjoy The Simpsons as a show, and it's been fantastic collecting the box sets on DVD. Moving on, we have season 19 of South Park, which I've been looking to grab this for quite a while, and I'm really glad that I waited because I logged into Amazon as a fluke one night, and they had this for only £2.16 delivered with Prime, which was absolutely phenomenal. So this was new sealed directly from Amazon themselves. It's not a bootleg, thankfully, since I've actually been quite worried about buying bootlegs recently. But anyway, this season overall was kind of disappointing. The ending wasn't great, but I did quite like some of the episodes. The standout episode for me personally was definitely Safe Space. face, and I really quite liked the second episode, which sort of began the Donald Trump and Mr. Garrison style parody, which honestly I think went in a horrible direction in season 20, but it began fantastic with the fuck all the immigrants chants and all that kind of ludicrous stuff, especially when they actually did fuck the Canadian Donald Trump to death, which was hilarious. I really enjoyed that episode. So that's season 19 of South Park. Definitely will be reviewing this as soon as possible since I've reviewed the other 18 seasons. So that's season 19 of South Park. Next up we have season 7 of Archer, which I've been looking forward to grabbing this for ages, and it finally came out in I think March, and overall it was pretty good. It was a Region 1 copy imported from Amazon, and I held off purposely from watching the show online just to enjoy it in its fullest when I grabbed it on DVD, and this season was pretty funny. It wasn't as good as some of the previous seasons, but I did like the direction it was going in with the Figgis Agency, and I love the last episode. That was one of my all-time favourite Archer episodes, and if I just peel away Archer's face, which is actually something that you can do, I'm going to do this as delicately as possible, but this actually could possibly be a spoiler for the last episode. I just think that's absolutely incredible for a DVD release. So yeah, I'm not going to pull that off all the way because I kind of don't want to ruin it, but that just looks absolutely fantastic. So 2 discs set, I think 10 episodes in total, and overall a really funny season. So that's Archer season 7. Next up we have seasons 2, 3, 4 and 5 of Bob's Burgers, which I absolutely love marathoning these DVD sets. Really great animation, fantastic comedy, definitely some of the best animated comedy out there at the moment, up there with Archer and Rick and Morty and South Park for sure. And yeah, this season overall was pretty good, only 9 episodes in comparison to the usual 20 plus episodes, but this season was great, really great depth and substance, and overall great humour to these episodes in particular, especially Bad Tina and Beef Squatch. The only thing that does let these sets down is that they are replicated onto DVD minus R discs on demand, which does really frustrate me since season 1 was an actual proper DVD release, but the rest of them are not. But other than that, I do really like these releases, and they do lack special features as well, which is kind of annoying. This is the only one out of these 4 sets that does actually have a special feature on it, and it's not really that good. It's just Act 1 of a table read from a season 3 episode, which really does suck. But that's season 2 overall. It's a really great season. Next up we have season 3, which I shall review as soon as possible, and this is probably the weakest of the releases, with loads of sort of random obvious errors all over the box set, etc. But 3 discs, great episodes such as OT the Outside Toilet, which was absolutely hilarious, and 2 for Tina was quite a good episode as well. Next up we have season 4, possibly my favourite season besides season 2 maybe, even though that is quite short, but I really do love some of the episodes on here, in particular the 2-parter finale War Force and World War II The Warfening, which was fantastic. Equestronauts was hilarious, Turkey in a Can was quite a strange episode but enjoyable. So yeah, you can check out my review on these box sets if you're interested in my thoughts on all the episodes. And finally we have season 5, which I've only watched disc 1 of thus far, and so far I'm really enjoying it. I love the episode with the turkeys, which was absolutely hilarious, and I cannot wait to check out some of the other episodes very soon. So that's seasons 2, 3, 4 and 5 of Bob's Burgers. Reviews of 3 and 5 shall be coming very soon. Moving on, we have Volume 2 and Volume 3 of Pinky and the Brain, which I spoke about this in my previous update when I picked up Volume 1, and this show is absolutely fantastic. There are 3 volumes in total, so this is the end of the series basically, but they did do a spin-off series just after this, which really was not successful at all, called Pinky, Elmira and the Brain, which I don't think I'll check out that show just because it doesn't look as appealing as the concept behind this show with 2 genetically altered lab mice plotting to take over the world every night. I haven't really watched much of Volume 3, but I have watched all of Volume 2, and this was absolutely fantastic. Really great animation, overall phenomenal episodes, and just some fantastic dialogue. And in particular, there's one piece of dialogue in this volume that just made me laugh hysterically.
You look sad, Brain.
Perhaps a little. Just taking in the night, Pinky. To contemplate the endless nature of the universe is to acknowledge one's own insignificance. Sometimes it seems so burdensome, so feckless.
Yes, it's completely without effect.
So it's stuff like that that usually does make me laugh when it comes to these kind of characters and shows like this. So that's Pinky and the Brain Volumes 2 and 3. Moving on, we have 2 box sets of the Ren and Stimpy Show. We have the first and second seasons, and then, as it says, season 3.5-ish, which I've only watched disc 1 of this one thus far, and I really enjoyed what I saw. Just overall really creative, quite gruesome, grotesque animation styles, and I really enjoyed that. Just a really great comedy, and some fantastic dialogue throughout this series, so I'm really looking forward to checking out the rest of it. I've only seen, as I said, disc 1, and one of my favourite episodes on there was titled Stimpy's Invention, where Stimpy creates a happy helmet for Ren to improve his mood since he's such a miserable character, and that was absolutely hysterical just for the animation alone because of just how bizarre it is. But that was really enjoyable, and I love the art style, especially for these DVD sets. This one in particular has my favourite look for it, with Ren there, there's Stimpy on disc 2 and both of them on disc 3. So that's the Ren and Stimpy Show, which I've actually been using this for an assignment I was writing, one of my final assignments for my animation class, and I used Ren and Stimpy, Pinky and the Brain, and the next show I'm going to talk about for that class, so I really enjoyed researching this show in particular. And the next cartoon I used for that assignment was Batman the Animated Series. This is just volume 1. It's a 4-disc set, really nice little box set, quite compact and nicely presented. And again, I've only seen disc 1 of this, unfortunately, but I really enjoyed what I saw. The Mamba episode was great. The overall voice acting, especially from Mark Hamill as the Joker, is phenomenal in this show, so I'm really looking forward to checking out the rest of it. But I really enjoyed the Mamba episode. The Poison Ivy episode was quite good with Two-Face, or Harvey Dent rather, he hasn't become Two-Face yet. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to watching the rest of this, and hopefully I'll be able to finish this show at some point very soon. So that's volume 1 of Batman the Animated Series. Next up, we have the complete series of the Potamus Show, which is a classic Hanna-Barbera cartoon from the 1960s. Quite an obscure show. I really wish things like this had played when Top Cat and the Flintstones were playing in my childhood. I remember watching those cartoons on BBC Two quite early in the mornings. But yeah, this show overall is actually quite interesting. Really creative animation once again, especially for the 60s. Just overall looks fantastic. And the renditions onto DVD look very, very good. So I'm very happy to have this in my collection. So that's the complete series of Potamus. Next up we have Wallace and Gromit, A Matter of Loaf and Death, which this was the only Wallace and Gromit short I was missing from my collection. I've got the Free Cracking Adventures DVD and the movie Curse of the Were-Rabbit, but I only watched this once when it first aired back in 2008, if I'm not mistaken, and I really enjoyed rewatching this. I couldn't remember a thing about it, so it was like watching it from scratch. But yeah, great animation as always. It's such a shame that there was no more of these produced, and of course Peter Sallis now sadly passed away quite recently, who voiced Wallace, which was very sad. So I don't think there'll be any future Wallace and Gromit shorts, unfortunately, but honestly I would definitely recommend checking this DVD out just for the special features alone. Really great stuff. So that's the Wallace and Gromit short, A Matter of Loaf and Death. Next up we have Volume 3 of Mr. Bean, starring Rowan Atkinson. I had Volume 1 and 2, and I actually rewatched those quite a while ago. It must have been maybe end of March. And I picked this up as well just to obviously finish off the show. And I think there's a Volume 4, but that's just full of special features. So this includes 2 very small shorts, The Library and The Bus Stop. The Bus Stop in particular was hilarious. And I love the Hair by Mr. Bean episode, which is fantastic as well. So that's Volume 3 of the Mr. Bean series starring Rowan Atkinson, just some classic comedy. Next up we have Primeval, the complete series 5. Honestly, I really don't understand why this was not pursued for a 6th series. The cliffhanger that they use on the end of this is something that really bugs me, and I just really wish they had not put the cliffhanger in. I won't obviously spoil it, but the series itself, if you've never heard of Primeval, it aired on ITV back in 2007, if I'm not mistaken, and was overall quite an interesting show. It spanned up to 2009, and then was cancelled abruptly, and then was brought back in 2011 for a 4th and 5th series. And for its run, I think it did quite well. Very interesting concepts for the past and future colliding with animals breaking into the present day. And so this team of archaeologists and scientists decide to send them back to where they come from, basically. So yeah, overall a pretty good series, and something that I really do wish had been continued. So that's Series 5 of Primeval. Next up we have a whole load of shitty, low-budget shark movies, beginning with Shocktopus. And this one was actually the superior one out of the ones films I've seen so far. Absolutely hilariously bad. It focuses on a hybrid of a shark and an octopus known as S11, which becomes self-aware after being under the control of the CIA and other government operatives, and so it ends up going rogue and more or less just going around killing people for no reason. I mean, if you've seen Sharknado, which seems to be the most popular shark film of this kind of shitty genre, then you've seen them all, basically. It's just a lot of really rubbish CGI gory deaths that happen to be hilarious in a lot of ways, and more or less that's the only reason why I checked out this movie, and that really did open up a wormhole. We have next up a Mega Shark versus Giant Octopus, which I actually despised. Really rubbish film. It bigged up the idea of a shark and an octopus being frozen in time for millions of years, and then suddenly being discovered and unfrozen in the present day, and then they start fighting again, and then there's planes being ripped out of the sky, and obviously, as you can see on the front cover, a boat being sunk. But it's quite the opposite. There's about a minute of fighting with the same footage of the shark biting the octopus's tentacle off, and then they both fall to the depths of the ocean. Load of rubbish, and the rest of the film is a bunch of unlikable scientists talking and swilling beakers and test tubes for no reason to try and come up with some kind of antidote to stop them from fighting or something. It's just a rubbish film. Next up we have Rogue, which is actually a proper movie. It just so happens to have a really low rating, and as you can see, the creature in this film is a crocodile, and this was actually a really enjoyable film, really suspenseful and overall fantastic. It stars the guy from Alias and Sam Worthington, of Who I Know, and overall it was really well performed. The extras who are involved in this were pretty rubbish, but other than that, great film focusing on a little boat in Australia full of tourists actually getting destroyed by this crocodile, and then those people one by one start getting picked off when they're on this little tiny island, and then the shore's coming in very fast towards the night, and so they have to make a swim for it, and so they come up with all these ludicrous schemes to get from one side to the other, and obviously this crocodile is very hungry, so you can see what can transpire there. But overall I really enjoyed Rogue. Actually quite a decent film. I think this has 5.9 out of 10 on IMDb. I think that deserves higher, but overall quite suspenseful. Next up we have Shark Night. I haven't watched this yet, but I am looking forward to doing so. We have Sand Sharks, another film I haven't watched yet, but the concept of this really did make me laugh. Sharks that can now swim in the sand. I mean, this one should be up there with Shocktopus, I'm hoping. And then another one that I do have high hopes for, Planet of the Sharks, which I grabbed for, I think, £3, brand new and sealed. And this is actually created by the creators of Sharknado, so I'm really having high hopes for this for sure. So that's Planet of the Sharks. Next up we have The Goonies, which I originally watched this film about 10 years ago in my first year of high school, and I didn't really think much of it back then, but rewatching it now I really can appreciate it for what it is, and I loved the overall adventure storyline. Great pacing overall, the child actors were pretty good, I really enjoyed the character of Chunk, very funny of course, and the ending scene is really quite evocative with One-Eyed Willie's pirate ship sailing off into the distance. So overall a really enjoyable film, and definitely much better than I remember it being. So that's The Goonies. Next up we have a couple of Spielberg-directed films, beginning with Artificial Intelligence. This film is absolutely astounding, a very thought-provoking insight into the technological advancements of robots to the point where they can actually feel human emotions. And in regards to the main character David, who is a small robot boy, that would be love, a love for his mother, who is actually a human mother. A human couple adopt David to replace, in a sense, replace their cryogenically frozen, terminally ill child. And David basically fills the void temporarily up until the child does actually make a miraculous recovery, and it's really interesting to see the friction between those two characters. And because of the brother, the mother actually develops a little phobia of the artificiality of David and literally ditches him in the middle of a forest, which is obviously where the dramatic changes begin throughout the film. And I actually thought that scene was really well acted, especially for a child actor. I mean, obviously the guy now will be approaching his 30s, but for a child actor I thought that scene was actually really sort of saddening. But overall I really enjoyed this movie, really thought-provoking. I really loved the character of Teddy, the little robot Teddy toy that followed David around, sort of like a sidekick in a sense. The ending was very perplexing, but I really did enjoy it, and I quite liked the side character Gigolo Joe, portrayed by Jude Law, basically like a male sex robot, which was an interesting choice for the film, and just overall very underrated in my opinion. This was supposed to be originally directed by Stanley Kubrick, who had the project in his mind for years and years, and it got shelved obviously because technology really hadn't caught up with his amazing ideas. And because he passed away back in 1999, Spielberg took over the project and actually made it into a film as a dedication to Kubrick. So overall, I really enjoyed this movie. Definitely one of my new favourite sci-fi films, just absolutely incredible. And we also have E.T. the Extraterrestrial, which I had this in my collection a very long time ago, and I can't really recall as to why I got rid of it in the first place. But I really enjoyed rewatching it. I just couldn't recall too much about the film in general, other than the obvious Elliot discovers E.T. in his garden shed and then tries to send him home. But just a really great film overall, with the theme of friendship as quite a prominent key thing throughout, and there's some great cinematography. I really enjoyed the bicycle chase sequence, and the quarantine scene where the house goes under quarantine by the government. I quite like that scene as well. So that's E.T. Next up we have Brick, which I haven't watched this movie yet, but I'm really looking forward to doing so. It stars Joseph Gordon-Levitt, and I might include this in my next update just to form a brief opinion on it anyway. So that's Brick. Next up we have Primal Fear, starring Richard Gere and Ed Norton, and Ed Norton's character in this film was the main reason why I actually checked it out in the first place, because it's another character he is portraying with multiple personality disorder, and when I say another, of course I'm referring to his character in Fight Club, and this was actually quite a chilling psychological thriller which was overall really intriguing. Ed Norton's character, he is an altar boy who is discovered covered in blood at the scene of a murder crime of the local archbishop, and throughout the film, Richard Gere's character of Martin, who is a lawyer, is defending him, and that leads to quite a lot of inexplicable developments, and just overall is quite creepy in some areas, and I just really enjoyed this phenomenal film, and I cannot wait to check out the novel that this film was based on just for comparison reasons. So that's Primal Fear, really enjoyable film. Next up we have a couple of classical Hollywood films, beginning with Gilda from 1946, starring the lovely Rita Hayworth. Overall actually quite an enjoyable film. I enjoyed it up until the ending. The end seemed a little bit too generic for me personally, and likewise with the next film I'm going to talk about, but I really enjoyed this for the characters. Gilda Munson is quite a sexy, seductive temptress throughout the film, seducing multiple men, and her husband, Balin Munson, who owns an illegal gambling casino, assigns the main character, Johnny Farrell, portrayed by Glenn Ford, to stop her from being unfaithful, and so he is tasked with stopping men from dancing with her, and she becomes very miserable very quickly, just because she's quite a seductive person and enjoys the attention, and it's just really quite interesting to see the downfall of her as a character, and the ending is quite shocking in some areas, so definitely quite an interesting film, and you may actually recognise this movie from being shown in The Shawshank Redemption. It's from that sequence where Red and some of the other inmates are watching that movie, and it just happens to be Gilda, and the scene featured from Gilda is the scene where she does that shit with her hair, which I actually quite enjoyed that moment in the film as well. So that is Gilda. Next up we have It Happened One Night, which I really didn't enjoy this too much. It was quite funny in some areas, just comical dialogue, and situation comedy was quite good in this, but overall it was kind of a letdown, especially the ending, just too generic, too much of a happy ending really, just wasn't really creative, but obviously this is from, I think this is from 1934, so obviously it's quite an old film, but the character of Ellie runs away after her rich and powerful father disagrees with her choice to marry a certain man, and while she's on the run she runs into a reporter, Peter, and together they actually run away, and he helps her get away from her rich and powerful father, and then suddenly falls for her. So quite an interesting twist throughout the film, but just wasn't as enjoyable as Gilda in my opinion. Next up we have Saving Mr. Banks, which I haven't watched this yet, but apparently it's not very good. I actually grabbed this for free somewhere. I can't remember where I picked this up from. I think a friend gave it to me, but yeah, it stars Tom Hanks and Emma Thompson, and I am looking forward to checking it out just to see whether or not it is good or bad, but yeah, pretty interesting looking Disney film. Next up we have the first 3 seasons of the TV show Castle, which is actually quite a surprising and very comedic detective drama. It follows the character of Richard Castle, or Rick Castle, who is a writer, and he teams up with Detective Kate Beckett, who is a homicide detective, and together they solve crimes, and Castle actually gathers inspiration from the crimes that they solve together, and he publishes a new series of books, which is just a great premise overall, and they're just really enjoyable. Each episode is a new crime solved. I think there's 10 episodes in total for season 1, so quite a short first season, but the other 2 are 20 plus episodes each, and just overall a really enjoyable first season. So that's Castle season 1. And then we have Castle Season 2, which I'm only on disc 2 of so far, and so far so good. I'm really enjoying it as well. So that's Season 2. And Season 3, which I have not watched yet, but again, another 6-disc set. And you can actually pick up physical copies of the Richard Castle books. So this is the first one, Heatwave, and which is actually prominently shown in the, I think the last episode of Season 1. There's actually a little dedication in the front of the book to the extraordinary KB, Kate Beckett, of course, and all my friends at the 12th. So this is basically a little prop, I guess you could say. There's Nathan Fillion pictured on the back. And yeah, I'm really intrigued to read this. I'll just assume it's basically a novelised version of a Castle episode, but still very good, so I cannot wait to read that and watch the rest of Castle as a series. So that is Castle. Next up we have the complete second season of iZombie, which I've been looking forward to watching this for a very long time. This Region 2 copy came out just at the end of May, if I'm not mistaken, and I actually had 2 bootleg copies given to me. I bought them from US sellers over eBay, and they were covered in spelling mistakes, and the disc quality was just awful, so you could just tell they were fake. So I got refunds on those, and I finally got a chance to finish watching the series, and I really thoroughly enjoyed it. Great second season, of course. Olivia Moore continues to solve crimes by devouring the brains of the victims that are brought into the morgue, and she eats the brains and gets flashbacks of just how they happened to die, and solves the crimes with Clive Babineau, who is the detective in this series. And overall, really enjoyable premise. I also really loved the premise of Major, her ex-boyfriend, having to kill a load of zombies after being blackmailed by the company Max Rager, which is responsible for the zombie outbreak in Seattle. So great twists and turns throughout the season. I really quite enjoyed the side character of Stacey Boss. He kind of reminded me of Joe Pesci in Goodfellas. So a really great side character, and just overall a phenomenal second season. So that's iZombie Season 2. Next up we have the first season of Mad Men, which I haven't watched this yet, but I've heard very good and then very bad about this series. Apparently there's quite a decline in quality towards the latter end of this, so I'm hoping that it will be good, and I'm hoping that I will enjoy it. So that's Season 1 of Mad Men. Next up we have Season 1 of Parks and Recreation, which I'm looking forward to watching this as well, because apparently it's very similar to The Office in terms of its comedy style, so I'm very looking forward to checking this out. I think it's only 6 episodes in total, Season 1, so quite a short first season. Next up we have Seasons 1 and 2 of Seinfeld. This is Volume 1, but it's just Seasons 1 and 2 combined for a simpler release, and I am looking forward to watching this. I've only seen about 10 minutes of the first episode, and I did enjoy what I saw, but I just could not really be bothered watching the rest of it, so I'll probably marathon this properly at some point. And I've been recommended by many of my subscribers to check out this series, so I shall do it momentarily. So that is Seasons 1 and 2 of Seinfeld. I really do quite like a lot of the skits that I've seen on YouTube of Seinfeld, in particular the Soup Nazi one, which was hilarious. And finally, to conclude this update, we have 2 massive box sets of Star Trek The Next Generation, Seasons 3 and 4. I rebought Season 3 because my copy was scratched and damaged and had really bad damage on the discs. So I rebought this. I haven't watched any of this yet. I'm still stuck on Season 2, which I'm slowly progressing through. But this has the really intriguing cliffhanger ending with the Borg, and that is continued in Season 4, so I grabbed both of these from the same seller over eBay, fairly cheap, so that's not so bad. And that's pretty much it for this update video. So thanks for watching my Blu-ray and DVD update for July 2017, I hope you enjoyed, and thank you so much for sticking around if you have. I really do appreciate the views, likes, comments and subscriptions, so by all means drop a comment below, let me know if you want me to review anything in the near future, and please subscribe down below for more upcoming updates.